There's something about the idea of the dress swirling and moving in space and all those memories that have gone. They're somewhere out there, they're sort of swirling in the ether. I was aware that the dress would come across as a celebration of things I did remember. But in fact, it's about the opposite, of course. It's about the fact that all these things I know happened are empty headlines. If I try and remember those things, I realise there's no actual material there. I have a condition called aphantasia. It's an inability to visualise it in your head. I have impressions of things, but I can't really look at them. If you try and look at them, they evaporate. You forget things because you don't reinforce your memories by rerunning pictures in your head, enjoying reliving things. And so what happens is you're not reinforcing those memories, so they very quickly evaporate. And that's just one of various symptoms that aphantasia has. And so I've been exploring the different symptoms in my work. Knots are a symbol of remembering. I've made hundreds of knots and stitched them all over the dress, in between all the embroidery. And they're there to symbolise all the things, all the material that isn't there. And almost to mourn it, really. To mourn all the stuff that's gone. I started off as an illustrator, and I've spent a good part of my working life illustrating children's books. But I've also always loved to draw, and I've always kept sketchbooks. I record the minutiae of things that I see in life. And it's partly because I just love that process. I can do anything I like in a sketchbook, in whatever way I fancy. It's a freeing way of working. Wherever you open the book, you have a moment in your life that you would have forgotten. It takes you right back to where you were and who you were talking to, what was happening, the sounds. They're all kind of sucked into the image. These books are basically a kind of diary of my life. When I look at a sketchbook, I have all these memories of when I was actually stood there, and I can kind of remember the whole context of the drawing, so it brings things back to life. It's been very interesting to look back over my sketchbooks, now knowing that I have aphantasia, and realise that there was a reason why I was recording all this stuff. In recent times, I have done a complete shift. And so about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to paint abstract paintings. And from that, I did a transition into textile work. I find that it kind of really echoes drawing and painting. So I like to use a lot of sheer fabrics, because a rough cut bit of sheer fabric is very much like a lovely splosh of watercolour, and a stitched line is very much like a drawn line, and I love that interface between the two. Most of what I make these days is sculptural. One of the other recent pieces that I've made is called Father, Brother's Husband, and it's about this idea that I can't see the faces of the people that I love in my head. So I made a life-size head for each of the kind of men in my close family. So for my father, my husband, and my 2 brothers. I wanted to make them out of net because it's again another way of reflecting the fact that there's nothing really there. I have an impression, but I don't actually have anything visual. I try, if I close my eyes and try and think of what my father looked like, or my husband looks like, I have this fleeting moment of having an impression and then there's nothing there at all. So the net is a way of trying to get that across. But what I've embroidered on the net forms is all the things that I know about the visual appearance, because one of the things I've realised is there's two different ways of remembering people. I know that my husband wears glasses even though I can't see them. Another piece that I've made that's quite similar to the dress in some ways is Forgotten Memories. I came across an old diary from 1984, and of course it was filled with material that I had completely forgotten. I wanted to use that diary material to try and express this idea of having stuff that is locked in my head that I can't get at. I took lots of different moments from the diary. I hand embroidered them onto little squares of sheer fabric, and then I rolled that up so that what you get is something that has clearly got text on it, and so you know there's material in there but it's too confused and so you can't actually read it. It's a way of trying to express the idea that that's a little bit what the inside of my head is like. Around 2016, I started to get opportunities to collaborate with academics, and it was the beginning of something that was a very new chapter in my life. And I was approached by Professor Sue Heath at the University of Manchester, who's a social scientist, and she invited me to spend a year using my urban sketching skills to record all the different things that they were doing in the centre, doing the collaborations. It's a really interesting way of continuing to challenge yourself and to force your work to evolve and do new things. I love the idea of being brought up close and personal with this often quite precise interest, and to get the opportunity to drill down into that and learn about it and then find a way of expressing it. Probably one of the most exciting ones I've done I did recently, which was with the University of Sheffield, and that was about our relationship to plastic.
As linguists, we're interested in examining how people are really using language in day-to-day settings. And what we can do using corpus linguistics technology is we basically feed all this language through a computer, and that computer can analyse very quickly the sorts of patterns that are occurring in language use.
What I did was took phrases, quotes from research the linguists were doing. They're actual quotes from some of them from members of the public and some of them from people who are working in the plastics industry. And they're all conflicted statements. They all pivot around the word but.
Lynne was able to see how those lines in a computer program are actually expressing something really fundamental about our relationship with plastics.
What I'd like when people look at the dress is for them to really think about how they negotiate this idea of passing time. Who are we without that backstory, without our memory? I think the theme of Aphantasia is one that is going to run and run for me. There's so much more work for me to do. It's so much about a sense of self, and that's so important to each of us, really.